Just to remind everybody, our top 50 books of all time is up. If you want to go and check it out, head to whatyoulearn.com/top50. You will love it.
Welcome back to What You Will Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
And my name is Adam Jones. Today we are reviewing The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. The Secret to Love That Lasts. Another New York Times #1 bestseller.
Mate, we thought given it's Valentine's Day coming up this week, it was a good time to inject a bit of love into the podcast with the 5 love languages.
So yeah, we probably consider ourselves very, masculine. A lot of the books we read don't go into this area, so it's our first time delving into the love and the emotions and the heart. So we're going to do our best.
We're at the cafe this morning discussing our run sheet. It was a little bit uncomfortable, I must admit, to be talking about love and emotions in public, but yeah.
Especially, it comes up a bit later, something to do with back rubs and sex, and the person just serving us the coffee just kind of just looked at us a little bit oddly and just kept going on about his day, but anyway, we'll get into it.
Psychologists have concluded that the need to feel loved is a primary human emotional need, and it's among all these basic emotional needs, we've got this feeling of love and affection. It gives us a sense that we belong, and it gives us a sense that we are wanted, and it's absolutely vital for us as human beings.
Without love, we're going to feel emotionally and socially challenged, Gary says. So if you think about the whole idea of falling in love, when you first meet someone, you have this, what he calls the in-love experience. The person might say things like, I know it's crazy, but I've never been so happy. And in your mind, you think the other person is the most perfect and most wonderful person in the whole entire world. Then a bit of time goes on. Then all of a sudden, the imperfections of the other person are found. And he says this usually comes after about 2 years' time. When we pass this original falling in love experience, that's the first time we have to deal with the kind of real love where you see the other person's imperfections and some of these issues and blemishes start popping up.
And it's important that after we get past this honeymoon phase, in the honeymoon phase, it's all very easy. As you said, this fictional feeling of being in love is able to get us through everything. But when we get to the reality sort of and the imperfections start to pop up, it becomes more of a conscious act for us to continue to, in our relationships, continue to build this feeling of love.
He uses the analogy of an emotional love tank that can be on empty or can be on full. So using these love languages, it's a way of just like taking your car to the petrol station, really just filling it up with a lot of love for the other person. And as you said, when you get to this point where you're in real love, it comes down to being a proactive choice, what you need to do to be able to do the certain actions to make your partner feel like they're being loved and filling up their tank.
Yeah, and the importance of these 5 love languages, he says that everybody has one of these 5 love languages, but if you've got one love language and your partner's got a different love language, it's almost like as if you're trying to speak English and they're trying to speak Chinese, you can't really understand each other and what you're trying to communicate. So you might feel like you're giving your partner so much love, all that you can give, but they might not be hearing it because they're speaking a completely different language to you. So as you're listening to this episode, we're going to list and discuss the 5 different love languages. So it's important to listen to each of these and what they mean and try to work out what is your love language and probably more importantly, what is your spouse's love language or your partner's love language so that you can then speak in their language so that they can feel loved by you.
So we'll list them before we get into them. So they are words of affirmation, quality time, spending quality time with them, receiving gifts, acts of service, and number 5 is physical touch. So they're the 5. Just for a bit of context before we delve a little bit deeper into each one.
And I'd say that 98% of blokes would probably say like, I'm all about the physical touch.
That's what you think.
That's what you think when you first hear them. But definitely keep an open mind because that's probably not going to be you potentially. So you could be one of the other 4. The first one is words of affirmation. So that's like the verbal compliments or words of appreciation. And these can be super powerful communicators of love if this is your love language.
It could be things like, you look absolutely beautiful and stunning in that dress. Or it could be, say, you look handsome and amazing in that suit. So they're basically words of compliments just to bolster the other person up.
Yeah, it's also like things like, I appreciate that you took the time to come and pick me up from the train station, or I really admire how you're able to connect with so many different people when we go to church. Just things like that go beyond, I guess. It shows that you're recognizing and understanding what they're doing, and a simple sentence can be a massive thing to somebody whose love language is words of affirmation.
It could be encouraging words. So perhaps your spouse or your partner has real untapped potential in one or more areas of life. So if you can find out what areas of life that their potential is in, it might be encouraging them to really take that next step and really grow in some kind of way.
Yeah, and another thing is when you're asking your partner to do something, when you're asking a request, it's almost an indication that you believe in them, that you know that they have this ability and that you trust them to be able to do something. So if you're asking your request in the right way, it can be, in a sense, an affirming word, because it makes them feel like they believe that they trust you.
So William James said it's possibly the deepest human emotion that we need to feel appreciated. So, and this is especially if this is your main love language or your partner's. So if you know it's your partner's, then you need to really step up in this area.
Yeah, if it's not your love language, but it is your partner's love language, it can be obviously a bit uncomfortable for you at the start, or you might think, I'm no good at giving words of affirmation, but it is like learning a brand new language. You're not going to be very good at it at the start, but it is super important for you to put in the time and effort required to learn a new language. And what he says in addition to these words of affirmation is also to give the words of affirmation in front of, say, if you're with family or friends, it's important to still give that. And also he says that it's important to give it indirectly. So he says if you can tell your say, for example, your wife's mother how great your wife is, you're going to get the double points, because then the wife's mother will tell the wife indirectly, and she'll probably amplify it and add a little bit of salt and pepper.
Yeah.
So not only does your wife think you're amazing, your wife's mother is super proud that she's got a great son-in-law.
Yeah, always a bit of Machiavelli coming in with your narrative fallacy you pull from books. But I love it, man. That's number one. So it's all about words of affirmation. So yeah, really important to do if this is one of your partner's things. And I think as a baseline, man, everybody has at least a little bit of this.
Oh, definitely.
That they need.
And some of the things that he says you can try to do to begin to learn and begin to practice this, if it is your partner's love languages, just set a goal for, say, a month, and you're going to give a different compliment each day for a month, just one compliment per day. Or another might be to thank your spouse for something that they do routinely and they wouldn't expect to be complimented for. So if you notice something that they do every day, maybe they make the bed every day, and it's just become routine, it's just expected now. If you can give some kind of appreciation or words of affirmation in that regard, it's going to catch them off guard a little bit. They're going to really appreciate that.
The second love language is all about quality time. So when we're saying quality time, we mean giving someone your undivided attention. It doesn't mean just sitting there watching Netflix and just not speaking and watching a movie. It means just sitting there, other side of the table, just looking at each other. It's only just you and them, and having a serious engagement and serious time together. Yeah,
it's like if you think every Friday night after work you go out for drinks with the boys, and then you think, I'm going to give some quality time. I'm going to go with my partner and we'll go watch a movie. It's probably like it's not the worst thing you can do, obviously, but just sitting there watching TV is not the best quality time, because there isn't that element of undivided attention and full focus and engagement there.
Yeah, you don't need a hell of a lot of time. It might just be literally just 10, 15 or 20 minute walk or something like that. You got so much time in the day, you could probably almost certainly actually allocate a small chunk of this to just your partner to affirm them in this way.
Yeah, so it's not just being in the same room as somebody. The key ingredient here is giving that quality, focused, undivided attention, especially in this era of distractions. It's very easy to open the phone and check the Facebook notifications, and obviously that does not in any way contribute to the quality time. So when we're being distracted or when we're trying to do other things, we're really not speaking our partner's love language if their love language is quality time.
So a big part of quality time is quality conversation. So this is quite different from the first love language, which was all about affirmation. That's all about the focus on what you're saying to them. This quality conversation focuses on what you're hearing. So it means you're listening to your spouse as opposed to just saying nice things to them.
Yeah, exactly. And a few tips he gives for conversation is always maintaining eye contact when your spouse is talking. So don't be glancing off into the distance, or they'll get the feeling that you're not interested. Don't speak at the same time as listening. Obviously, listening first before you're speaking. Listen for their feelings. So try to ask yourself, what emotion is my partner experiencing? And also some things like observing body language. Like last week we talked about if they've got clenched fists or their hands are trembling, or obviously if there's physical tears, and it's a bit of a giveaway as to how they're feeling as well.
So a big part of quality conversation is also learning to talk, and this means sympathetic, not just sympathetic listening, but also self-revelation. So if you're going to have quality conversation and get down and deep in the talk, then you need to really reveal some things about yourself that you might be feeling really vulnerable about and not want to share. But you need to have the kahunas to share it, to actually enter quality conversation with the spouse.
Yeah, most definitely, man. If you might think, if this isn't your natural love language, you might think that just sitting there and listening to everything they say means you're fulfilling your role, but it's certainly not.
Not cutting it.
It's got to be a two-way street for
sure. You got
to
share that bad thing that happened to you when you were 10 years old with them. Yeah. Nothing happened to me when I'm 10.
So specific there.
Yeah.
A few actions, again, to get started in learning this new love language. One he says is like to involve your partner throughout your day. So perhaps send a photo from when you're going for a walk, or if a funny incident happened in the office, send them an email. So even though when you're apart, they still feel like they're joining your day as well.
One I really like is doing chores together. So chores a lot of the time are a pain in the ass, especially if
no one wants to do them.
No one wants to do them. If you're doing them by yourself, they're a real pain. But this is a real opportunity to get two birds done with one stone. Do a bit of love language and share some quality time with your partner whilst you're doing something that's usually mundane.
I like it. Love language number 3 is receiving gifts. So if this is your love language, then having something physical that you can hold on to, it's a way of them saying, look, my partner was thinking of me, they got me this gift. And for some people, receiving gifts is a super important thing for their love language.
So that's the important distinction. It's not just about how much the gift costs. It's more so the amount of thought that you put into the gift. So it doesn't have to be an expensive, gift at all, really.
Yeah, he even says that, if you take the dog for a walk and then you see a nice flower in the neighbour's yard and pinch it and take it back, then that's your way of saying that you were thinking of them during the walk as well.
So make a list of all the gifts your spouse has expressed excitement about receiving through the years. Do it that way. Get a list, and then you can start just ticking them off the list.
It is a good one to keep track of for sure, because they'll definitely say either experiences, like things that they want to do or things that they want to receive as a gift. It's important to be listening to that and keep a track of it, because then when it comes around to Christmas and birthday time, you're not just thinking, oh, what the hell can I get them? You've got a nice little doc there of all the things that they've asked for throughout the year.
So that's it, man. Things you can do: keep the gift notebook. When money is tight, think of appropriate symbolic gifts. Or when you're just going about your day, just grab a random gift off the street, off the ground or something that makes it look like you're thinking about your partner.
Little shell.
Little
feather, bit of a leaf.
Mate,
Mate, we're not too good at giving gifts, are we?
We suck at the gifts one, I think.
Love language number 4 is acts of service.
So this is about doing things your spouse would like you to do. So you seek to please by serving him or her, to express your love by doing things for him or her.
Yeah, just things like, cooking a meal, setting the table, emptying the dishwasher, cleaning the car, or even, paying the bills, trimming the shrubs, painting the room, making the bed. All of these small things that might seem like a little bit of an inconvenience at the time, but 2 minutes out of your day could be massive if their love language is acts of service. It feels like, to them, it feels like you're doing something for them.
Yeah, to the partner, some things might be seeming like service, but some things really don't fill up the love tank at all. So you could spend a full day, doing the cleaning, doing the washing, and you haven't even filled anything in the love tank. So you got to really understand what your partner really wants and really appreciates in terms of service specifically.
Yeah. No, it is very important to not just do any act of service, but obviously something that's important to them.
Yeah, it's nothing worse than just spending 6 hours doing a whole bunch of shit and no one cares. Got to be careful about that.
So some of the actions you can do here is to sit down with your partner. If you both recognize that their love language is acts of service, sit down together and make a list of what are the 10 things that they will most appreciate, and probably put them in order in 1 to 10. So then at least you can think, okay, what are the top things that I can do to make them feel loved?
Yeah, it's really important, man. For me and my partner, we both did scattergun, the kind of chores and things we did around the house and so forth. But we just through this conversation learned that she likes it when I cook, which is great because I don't mind cooking, but I love it when she helps with the washing. So, which I hate doing the washing. So both acts of service, and we fill up the love tank that little bit each time we know we're doing that.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. And love language number 5 is physical touch. So it's not just all about the rooting. It's also about, holding hands, kissing, embracing, a little bit of massage here or there, but just that physical connection of even just putting your arm around them.
So unlike the other 5 senses, touch is not limited to one part of the body. We've got these little tactile receptors all over the body that can cause pain or pleasure, and they can be interpreted as love or hostile. So touch is a pretty strong sense that we've got. And we need to learn how to do it in the right way, not the hostile way, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And a few things that you can do here is use like a few trigger moments as to remind you to do touch. Like say one example he gives is when you get out of the car and walk from the car to the shopping centre, just that 20 seconds is a good excuse to just reach out and hold hands for that 20 seconds.
Yes, and if this is your partner's love language, it might just be hugging them when you got people around for dinner and having your arm around each other.
Yeah, similar to the one we said before, that it's almost like by you, even in the presence of other people, it makes them feel like you're still seeing them and that they're still important to you, even when you got 6 people around watching.
And there's another frisky one. So if your partner is the love language of touch, then one thing you can do is initiate sex by a foot massage. So it's just the ultimate touch explosion.
And then, that moves slowly up from the foot to the lower leg, and then maybe to the thigh, and see where it takes you from there.
The party begins. Shit.
And so I think that they're the 5 love languages, and a little bit of information on each one. So the words of affirmation, the quality time, the receiving gifts, the acts of service, and the physical touch. And as you said, I think most blokes probably think, I love sex. It's all about the physical touch. But if you dig a little bit deeper, it's probably not going to be that. So there's a few ways that Mr. Chapman gives us into how we can discover our own love language.
One way of looking at it to discover your own is to think about all the things that your partner does that hurts you most deeply. So it might be that when they're saying something insulting to you that hurts a lot, that probably means the opposite is true, where your primary love language is affirmation.
Yeah.
Or if you're not having any sex, or if you're not getting any touch, or you're not cuddling or hugging or anything like that, that means this is probably the one you appreciate the most. Yeah,
definitely. Looking for that negative is probably a good way to do it as well. Another one is a more obvious one is, what do you request most often? So if you're keep asking your partner to clean the dishes, then maybe acts of service is something for you. If it's something that you feel like you're always nagging them about, it could be an indication that that sort of acts of service or receiving gifts or something like that is yours.
Another way to find it out, in what way do you express it to your spouse? That's probably a sign of what your personal one is.
Yeah, if you think that, because obviously for you, that's what you feel like is the way of showing love. So if that's something you're doing, obviously that's probably a good indication of what you need to receive.
So there are 3 really good, helpful tips of really finding out what your own love language is. It was a bit more difficult for me and you to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think we got there.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first looked at the list, I was probably looking just for a bit of physical touch. But I think I'm probably more towards the words of affirmation. Obviously, everybody needs a little bit of everything, but the main one for me would be words of affirmation.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too, actually. And the only way I found that out was after reading this book and then actually getting a few, not fully insulting words, but a few words that not extremely nice. And then I realised, the opposite's true for me.
Yeah, I like it. So I think it is an important one in relationships. It's obviously everybody is going to be in some kind of interpersonal relationship at some point. I think it is important to have a bit of a read and have that discussion as to what is your love language, what's your partner's love language, and so you can at least be servicing each other and filling up those love tanks.
So this Valentine's Day, we both reckon, go out and then probably go ultra on your partner's love language for the day, and they're going to have an incredible Valentine's Day and have a very romantic night that evening.
Yeah. Get some love into you.
Get some loving.